That night at the gym, I thought it was just another training session. Another hour of pushing my limits. Another round of hearing Damon's deep voice commanding me to go harder, faster, stronger. But I never thought he would do that to me. Since that night, everything has changed. It all started when I decided to focus on myself, to stop thinking about my ex, to drown out the loneliness with sweat and discipline. I told myself it was just a gym, just a trainer, just a routine to keep my mind busy. That's when he came into my life. Damon. When I first walked into Summit Elite training, I told myself this was about me, about regaining control, about pushing past the weight of my last relationship, the disappointment, the betrayal, the way it made me feel like I wasn't enough. I wasn't here to impress anyone, least of all my new personal trainer. And yet, the moment I saw him, something inside me faltered. He was tall, effortlessly strong, with the kind of build that made it clear he knew exactly what he was doing in a gym. But it wasn't just his physique that caught my attention. It was his presence. The quiet, commanding intensity of a man who didn't need to prove himself. His dark eyes flicked over me, assessing, but not in a way that felt demeaning, more like he was reading me, measuring what I was capable of before I'd even said a word. "You must be Lena." His voice was low, controlled, the hint of something unreadable beneath it. "I'm Damon. We'll be working together for the next few weeks." I nodded, suddenly self-conscious in my fitted leggings and tank top, my pulse betraying me when I realized just how broad his shoulders were, how his black t-shirt clung to his frame like it had no choice. This was fine. This was normal. The first session was professional. Strict form corrections, quiet instructions, no unnecessary small talk. But I wasn't imagining the way his voice dropped slightly when we were alone, the way his fingers lingered just a second too long when adjusting my stance. It started with small things, things that didn't mean anything, or at least they shouldn't have. The light touch of his hand on my lower back as he corrected my posture during deadlifts, the way he stood close behind me, his breath just barely skimming my shoulder when he demonstrated the proper technique. The way his gaze lingered in the mirror, watching me. But the second I turned, his expression was unreadable like I'd imagined it, and maybe I had. Maybe I was just overanalyzing after months of feeling invisible, unwanted. But there was something else. Something unspoken that clung to the air between us. It was in the way my heart raced when he leaned down to adjust the weight rack beside me, his arm brushing mine, the way his voice coiled around me when he said my name. Slow and deliberate. I told myself I was just reacting to the situation. After all, Damon was my trainer, and I was just another client. But that explanation didn't quite settle the heat curling under my skin when his fingers brushed my waist during an assisted squat. "Good," he murmured, voice edged with approval. "You're stronger than you think." I swallowed hard, nodding, though my focus had long since slipped from the exercise. I was here to focus on myself, to rebuild something that had been broken inside me, and yet, with every passing session, it became harder to ignore the quiet pull between us, the way I wanted him to look at me, to notice me, and deep down I knew I wasn't imagining it. But the story didn't end there. I started training harder. Not just for myself, but for him. I told myself it was about progress, about proving to myself that I could be disciplined, dedicated. But deep down, I knew the truth. Every time I stepped into that gym, every time I saw Damon's sharp gaze assessing me, something inside me coiled tight. I wanted him to see my strength, to acknowledge the effort I was putting in, to notice me. And maybe he already had. He didn't let up. He pushed me, demanded more, expected better. If I thought I was giving my all, he made sure to find that last bit of energy buried somewhere deep inside me. "Again," he ordered one evening, standing just behind me as I struggled to hold a plank. My arms trembled, my core burned, my breath came in uneven gasps. Sweat dripped from my forehead onto the mat, but I clenched my teeth and held. I wouldn't break, not in front of him. 5 more seconds, he said, voice steady, almost amused. I felt the weight of his gaze on me, that unreadable intensity that always made my skin feel too warm, too exposed. He wasn't just watching me, he was studying me, assessing how much further I could go before I gave in. The timer beeped. My arms gave out, and I collapsed onto the mat, gasping for breath. Damon crouched beside me, handing me a towel. His arm brushed mine, just a fleeting contact, but enough to send a jolt of heat through me. "Not bad," he murmured, his voice lower than usual. I wiped my forehead and met his gaze. It was too steady, too deep. He had this way of looking at me like he was on the verge of saying something, of doing something, but holding himself back. For weeks, the air between us had been shifting, thickening with something neither of us acknowledged aloud. And the banter had changed, too. At first, it was all about training, quick corrections, professional, to the point, but then it started to feel different. One night, after an especially grueling set of deadlifts, I groaned and rolled my shoulders back. "You trying to kill me or something?" Damon smirked. "If I wanted to kill you, you'd know it." The way he said it, low, teasing, darkly amused, sent a shiver down my spine. I scoffed, trying to ignore the way my stomach clenched. Good to know my death would be obvious. "You'd thank me for it," he said, his smirk deepening before he turned away. And I had no idea why that sent my pulse racing. The tension only grew. Subtle, lingering, impossible to ignore. One night the gym was nearly empty. The lights were dimmer than usual, the air thick with the smell of sweat and rubber mats. It was just the two of us. Damon had me doing a squat variation, one that required perfect alignment, balance, and control. I was focused until I lost my footing slightly, tipping forward. Before I could catch myself, his hands were on my hips, steadying me. I froze. So did he. His grip wasn't hesitant. It was firm, deliberate, fingers pressing into my skin just enough for me to feel the heat of them through my leggings. My pulse hammered as I felt the solid weight of his chest just inches from my back. "Here," he murmured, adjusting my stance. His breath was too close, too warm, brushing against my ear as he spoke. I swallowed hard. I could feel everything. The tension in his fingers, the way he exhaled slower than usual, the way neither of us moved away. A long, torturous second stretched between us. I should step back. I should laugh it off. I should act like my skin wasn't on fire beneath his touch. But I didn't, and neither did he. Something cracked between us, something unspoken, but undeniable. Our eyes met in the mirror in front of us, and for the first time, Damon didn't look away. His expression was tight, unreadable, but his fingers didn't move from my waist. I wasn't imagining this. I wasn't imagining the way his grip lingered, the way his jaw tensed like he was fighting something he didn't want to admit. Then, as suddenly as it happened, it was over. Damon let go. He stepped back like nothing had happened, his expression unreadable once again. "That's enough for today," he muttered, his voice rough. I swallowed against the strange, breathless feeling curling inside me. Right. Yeah. But as I picked up my things and turned toward the exit, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was holding something back. And worse. I didn't want him to. Little did I know there was much yet to come. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The way his hands had settled on my waist. The heat of his touch. The way tension had thickened the air between us. Something raw and unspoken, crackling in that moment before he had pulled away too fast, too abruptly. And I knew he felt it too. But Damon was nothing if not controlled. He had spent weeks maintaining a professional distance, only allowing the smallest hints of something else to slip through when he thought I wouldn't notice. But now, after that moment, I saw the shift in him. Our next few sessions were different. He was more distant, more professional, his movements tighter, more deliberate, like he was forcing himself to be indifferent. If I hadn't known any better, I would have thought he had lost interest. That I had been imagining things all along, but I wasn't imagining the way his hands still lingered for just a second too long when he adjusted my stance. I wasn't imagining the way his jaw tensed whenever my shirt lifted slightly, revealing a hint of skin when I stretched. I wasn't imagining the way his eyes darkened, just for a flicker of a second, whenever I pushed myself harder, sweat dripping down my collarbone, my breathing uneven. He was fighting something, and now that I had seen the cracks in his control, I couldn't unsee them, and neither could he. That night, I arrived at the gym later than usual, near closing time. The parking lot was almost empty, the neon glow from the Summit Elite training sign flickering faintly in the humid air. Inside, the gym was quiet, too quiet. I frowned. The usual hum of weights clanking, the occasional bursts of music from people's headphones, it was all gone. The space felt almost abandoned, except for him. Damon was at the front desk, his back to me, staring at something on his phone. When he turned at the sound of my footsteps, something in his expression shifted for a split second, before settling into something unreadable. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice quieter than usual. I hesitated. "We have a session." His lips pressed it. "Power's been flickering on and off. Management called to cancel all sessions for the night." I glanced around. The gym was still lit, though dimly, the overhead fluorescents replaced by the faint emergency lighting that cast long, moody shadows along the walls. I should have turned around. I should have left. Instead, I shrugged. "I'm already here. Might as well train anyway." His gaze flickered, something almost uncertain, conflicted, before he exhaled. "Fine," he muttered, "but just a light session." He didn't turn the main lights back on. I didn't ask why. The dim glow of the emergency system wrapped the space in an intimate haze, making the gym feel smaller, more enclosed. Everything felt different, and I could tell he felt it, too. I pushed myself harder than usual, though I wasn't sure if it was the workout or him that was making my pulse pound harder. Every movement, every breath, felt heavier, slower, more intoxicating. I was aware of him in a way that made my skin feel too hot, too tight. Every time he touched me to correct my form, it felt different now, less like guidance, more like restraint. I knew he was holding back, and I hated that he was. "Again," Damon murmured. I gritted my teeth, sweat sliding down my back as I lifted the weight again, my muscles burning, screaming, my breath coming in short bursts. He was closer than usual, too close. I could feel his presence behind me, solid and unyielding, heat radiating off his body in a way that made the air feel thick, almost suffocating. I barely finished the set before stepping back, my legs shaking slightly from exhaustion. And then, as I turned, I stumbled. It wasn't a dramatic fall, just a brief misstep, a second where my balance wavered, but it was enough. Damon caught me instantly. His hands gripped my waist, firm, steady, his touch searing even through my leggings, and suddenly, everything changed. I felt it all at once. The sharp inhale he took, the way his fingers flexed against my hips, like he was fighting something primal, something instinctual, the way his chest pressed against my back, warm, solid, unrelenting. Neither of us moved. Neither of us breathed. I swallowed hard, heart hammering, as I tilted my head slightly, just enough to look up at him. His jaw was clenched, his lips slightly parted like he wanted to say something but couldn't trust himself to speak. I could feel it, the tension coiling so tight between us it was ready to snap. "Damon?" He let go, stepped back so fast it was like I burned him. His breath came out ragged, his hands flexing before he turned away, running a hand over his face. "Go home," he muttered. I blinked, still unsteady. "What?" His voice was lower this time, almost rough. "Go home, Lena, before I do something I shouldn't." My stomach flipped. My pulse pounded. He wasn't looking at me, but I could see it in the way his body tensed, like he was barely restraining himself. And suddenly, I didn't want him to hold back anymore. I stepped forward, closing the space between us again. "Then do it," I whispered. His head snapped toward me, his eyes dark, unreadable, but I saw it then, the hunger, the way his gaze flicked down to my lips before he exhaled sharply and turned away again. "You don't get it," he muttered, his voice dangerously low. "I can't." "You won't," I corrected. Silence. A sharp, thick pause filled the air between us. Then he turned, slowly, deliberately, like he was still trying to fight it but had already lost. His gaze was heavy, dark, with something I wasn't sure he could contain anymore. My heart skipped a beat as he stepped toward me this time. For a second, just a second, I thought he was going to kiss me, but instead his jaw tightened. His hands clenched at his sides. "Leave," he said again, but this time it wasn't an order, it was a plea. I swallowed past the lump in my throat. Every instinct screamed at me to push, to cross the line we had been dancing around for too long, but he had already turned away. And something told me that if I stayed even a second longer, if I so much as breathed the wrong way, I wouldn't be able to stop what happened next. So I left. But I knew this wasn't over, because now there was no denying it. Damon wanted me, and I wasn't going to pretend I didn't want him too. The moment I stepped into the gym the next day, I knew everything had changed. The air felt different, heavier, charged, thick with everything we weren't saying, but couldn't ignore anymore. Damon was already there, standing near the weight rack, his hands flexing at his sides like he had spent the entire day bracing himself for this moment. I didn't say anything. Neither did he, but I could feel it. The tension had been simmering for weeks, and after that last session, it was boiling over. I swallowed hard as I walked toward him, my breath unsteady. He was edgy tonight, his movements sharper, his voice rougher, his commands clipped as he pushed me harder than usual. "Lower," he muttered when I did my lunges. "Push through your heels." I obeyed without question, even though my body ached, even though I knew he was distracting himself with training instead of facing what we both wanted. "Again," he ordered. I exhaled, steadying myself for another squat, my muscles trembling with exhaustion. But this time, as I lowered myself, my balance wavered, and before I could recover, he was there. His hands gripped my waist, strong and steady, keeping me from falling. I froze. So did he. His fingers dug into my sides, not moving, not releasing me. His chest was close, too close, the heat of his body searing through my skin. I could feel his breath against my cheek, the rise and fall of his chest, the tension wrapping around us like a vice. He didn't step back. Neither did I. A slow, torturous second stretched between us. His hands tightened on my waist. My heart slammed against my ribs. I swallowed, barely breathing as he tilted his head, his lips inches from mine. "Tell me to stop, Lena," he murmured. I didn't. I couldn't. Then, finally, he closed the distance. The kiss was slow at first, like we were both testing the limits, tasting the tension that had been building for so long. Then it deepened. Fast, desperate, all-consuming. His hands slid up my back, gripping me tighter, pulling me flush against him as his mouth claimed mine. A strangled sound escaped my throat as his fingers dug into my skin, demanding, needing, taking. I clung to his shirt, fisting the fabric, pulling him closer, deeper, harder. The world outside didn't exist anymore. There was no gym, no walls, no rules, only him, only this. Damon groaned against my lips, his restraint snapping like a thread stretched too thin. His hands traveled down over my hips, gripping me like he was starving for this. For me, I gasped when he suddenly spun us, my back colliding with the nearest wall. My legs trembled as he pressed into me, his body firm, hot, unyielding, his kiss growing rougher, more demanding. "You have no idea," he growled between kisses, his voice thick with something dark, something raw. "Show me," I whispered, breathless. His control snapped completely. His hands were everywhere, sliding under my shirt, tracing over my ribs, exploring every inch of skin he could reach. His lips left mine, only to trail down my jaw, my neck, biting, tasting, claiming. I shuddered, my nails raking down his back, feeling the tension in his muscles, the way he was holding himself back. Even now, I don't want it to stop, I admitted, my voice trembling. He exhaled sharply, pressing his forehead against mine. "I tried," he muttered, his breath hot against my lips, his fingers slipping beneath the waistband of my leggings, teasing the skin beneath. "I really fucking tried." I gasped as his hands tightened, pulling me against him completely, letting me feel just how much he wanted this. How much he wanted me. And then, a noise from the hallway, a sharp clang. We froze, breathing hard, panting. Reality crashed in like ice water. Damon's hands were still on me. My back was still pressed to the wall, my body still trembling against his. His chest rose and fell rapidly, his jaw clenched tight as if he was forcing himself to pull away. But he didn't move, and neither did I. Not yet. Damon didn't move. Neither did I. Our breaths were heavy, tangled, filling the space between us with something thick, unspoken, undeniable. My back was still pressed against the wall, my body still molded against his hands still gripping me like he was afraid to let go. The noise from the hallway had startled us, but neither of us truly wanted to stop. His forehead rested against mine, his breath hot, uneven, his chest still rising and falling hard against mine. I could feel the way his muscles trembled, the war raging inside him. "Fuck," he exhaled, his voice rough, like he was still trying to hold himself together. But I didn't want him to. Slowly I reached up, threading my fingers through his short hair, hugging him closer. His jaw tensed, his lips parting slightly as my nails grazed his scalp. "I'm not stopping," I whispered. His breath hitched, his fingers flexed against my waist, and then he gave in, his mouth crashed into mine again, rougher this time, hungrier. There was no hesitation, no holding back. It was world-consuming, a desperate clash of lips and teeth and tongues, like we had been starving for this, dying for it. His hands were everywhere, roaming my back, sliding under my shirt, gripping my hips, my thighs, like he needed to touch all of me at once. He lifted me, and instinctively my legs wrapped around his waist. I gasped as my back hit the wall again, the heat of his body pressing into mine, hard, unyielding, overwhelming. His lips trailed down my neck, his teeth grazing the sensitive skin there, his tongue soothing the bite that sent a shiver straight through me. "Damon," I breathed, my nails raking down his shoulders, feeling the way he shuddered beneath my touch. "Say it again," he growled against my skin. "Damon." A low curse left his lips as he pressed out his forehead into my shoulder, his breath ragged. His hand slipped beneath the band of my leggings, gripping my bare thighs, his fingers digging in just enough to drive me insane. "Tell me you want this," he rasped, his lips hovering over mine. "I do," I whispered without hesitation. "I always have." His lips crashed back into mine, and suddenly, we weren't thinking anymore. We were acting, feeling, taking, everything that had been building between us. The tension, the teasing, the moments we had pretended didn't mean anything. It all came undone, and neither of us wanted to stop. Damon lifted me effortlessly, walking us toward the training bench, lowering me onto the padded surface while his lips never left mine. My fingers fisted into his shirt, dragging him down with me, our breaths fast, unsteady, desperate. He hovered over me, his eyes dark and unreadable, his chest rising and falling like he was still battling something inside himself. "This is insane," he muttered, his thumb tracing my jaw, his touch softer than I expected. "I don't care," I whispered, arching up, feeling his body tense beneath my hands. He cursed under his breath, and then he gave in completely. Our bodies moved together in a way that felt inevitable, unstoppable, like this was something we had been fighting for too long. His hands were rough, urgent, but his lips, his lips were soft, tracing every inch of my skin like he was memorizing me. Everything outside that gym faded. There was only us, our breaths, our hands, our bodies colliding in ways we never should have allowed, but couldn't resist any longer. And when it was over, when we lay breathless, spent, tangled in each other, Damon's forehead rested against mine, his fingers still gripping my hips like he wasn't ready to let go yet. I should have felt regret. I should have worried about what this meant, but all I felt was satisfaction. I had wanted him for weeks, maybe longer. And now there was no going back. We never talked about it, not really, because after that night it just kept happening. Every time we were alone at the gym, every time the last client left, and the doors locked behind them, every time our eyes met across the equipment and we felt that pull, we gave in. It became our secret, our routine, our addiction. Damon would push me through grueling sessions, making me sweat, making my muscles ache, his voice firm, commanding, relentless. And then, the second we were alone, when there was no one left to see, he would push me against the nearest wall, grip my waist, and make me forget my own name. It was raw. It was desperate. It was fucking dangerous, but neither of us could stop. Some nights, it happened in the stretching area, my body still trembling from an intense workout when Damon would step behind me, his hands sliding down my waist, his lips grazing the shell of my ear as he murmured, "You have no idea how hard it is to train you and not do this." Other nights he would find me in the locker room, my hands gripping the counter, my reflection in the mirror meeting his as he slid behind me, pressing himself against me, his voice a low growl in my ear. "You're making it impossible for me to stay in control," he'd say, and I loved every second of it. We had no labels, no promises, no talks about what we were doing, just a burning need that neither of us could resist. And the worst part? I didn't want to resist anymore. Damon was pulling away again. I could feel it in the way he moved, in the calculated precision of his actions, in the way he deliberately avoided being alone with me for longer than necessary. The same man who had spent the last few weeks pushing me against walls, gripping my waist, whispering the filthiest things in my ear now, couldn't seem to stand being near me. And I hated it. Training continued as if nothing had happened, as if we weren't unraveling each other behind closed doors, as if he hadn't spent those late nights burning his name into my skin, his touch seared into every part of me. But I wasn't stupid. I could see it. The tension in his jaw, the way his hands tightened into fists whenever I moved too close, the way his voice sounded rougher, strained when he gave me instructions. He was fighting it, but didn't he feel it too? That night, again I stayed behind. After training, the gym was empty, quiet except for the hum of the AC and the occasional distant thud of weights in the next room. Damon had already started cleaning up, his back turned to me as he methodically wiped down the equipment, his shoulders tense, his movements stiff. I watched him for a moment, the silence between us stretching, suffocating, and I couldn't take it anymore. "Damon!" My voice came out softer than I intended, hesitant but firm. "Did that kiss mean nothing to you?" His entire body stilled. For a long, heavy second, he didn't turn around, didn't move, didn't speak. Then, slowly, he exhaled, placing the towel down, his hands gripping the edge of the bench so tightly his knuckles turned white. Finally, he turned to face me, his jaw clenched, his dark eyes unreadable, but there was something raw beneath the surface, something tormenting him. "It meant too much," he admitted, voice low, rough. My stomach flipped. He ran a hand over his face, looking away like he couldn't stand to hold my gaze. "Lena, we can't keep doing this." I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. "Why not?" "You know why," he muttered. "Then say it." His eyes snapped to mine. "Because it's too complicated, because I shouldn't want you like this. Because every time I touch you, I know I won't be able to stop, and that scares the hell out of me." My breath hitched, heat curling low in my stomach. "You say that," I whispered, stepping toward him, "but your body says something else." His jaw tensed even more, his entire frame going rigid as I closed the distance between us. "And so, I could feel the heat radiating off him, the way his chest rose and fell a little too fast, the way his hands twitched at his sides like he was fighting the urge to grab me. "I should stop this," he muttered, more to himself than to me. I tilted my head, watching the way his throat worked as he swallowed hard. "Then why haven't you?" A muscle in his jaw ticked. I could see the war in his eyes, the push and pull between what he thought he should do and what he desperately wanted instead. And just as I started to step back, his fingers wrapped around my wrist, pulling me back. "I don't want to stop," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper, almost pained. Something inside me snapped. Before I could even process what I was doing, I grabbed his shirt, pulling him down to me. Our lips met in a clash of heat, urgency, desperation, all the tension from the last few weeks exploding between us in a kiss that left no more room for hesitation. Damon groaned, his hand sliding down my back, gripping me, pressing me flush against him like he never wanted to let go. I gasped into his mouth as he backed me against the nearest wall, his body pinning mine, his lips devouring me like he was finally done, pretending he didn't want this. "You drive me insane," he muttered against my lips, his hands everywhere, my waist, my hips, my thighs, sliding up, pulling me closer, deeper. "Then stop fighting it," I breathed, raking my fingers through his hair. He cursed under his breath, then kissed me again, harder, rougher, like he was making up for every second he had denied himself this. And just like that, I knew this wasn't over. This would never be over. It happened again, and again. Each time it burned hotter, deeper, pulling us further into something neither of us could control. We weren't supposed to want this, weren't supposed to crave the way our bodies fit together, the way his hands knew every inch of me now, the way my name sounded when he whispered it into the darkness. But we did, and when the world woke up, when the gym lights flickered back to life and the doors unlocked for the first clients of the day, we went back to normal. Like it never happened. Like he hadn't just spent the night tearing me apart with his touch, breaking every rule we swore we wouldn't cross. Like I hadn't clung to him, gasping his name in the empty locker room, my legs wrapped around his waist, my body ruined by the way he made me feel.